All right, ready for another deep dive. Today, we're going deep into the life and crimes of a lesser known, but I think pretty fascinating serial killer, Anna Marie Hahn. Yeah, you might even call her Arsenic Anna. Our sources for this deep dive, excerpts from our Wikipedia page. And what we've got here, it looks like, is a seemingly ordinary woman who was hiding a very dark secret.
One of the things that strikes me about this case is how it really challenges our assumptions about who is capable of, well, such horrific acts, right? Han, she wasn't driven by, poverty or desperation. Actually, her early life in Germany shows a picture of, relative comfort. She was one of 12 children. And her family, they were financially stable. Her father, he was a successful furniture maker.
Yeah, it's almost like more unsettling, right? That someone with a seemingly normal upbringing could be harboring such darkness. It's really something. Speaks to the complexities of human nature.
It does, definitely. And this complexity is just further highlighted by the mystery surrounding the birth of Han's son, Oscar. This is when she was just 19. She claimed that the father was a prominent doctor from Vienna, but, well, there's no record of this alleged doctor that exists.
So, okay, we've got a secret baby and a potentially fabricated story about, like, a high society father. What happened next?
Well, this scandal, whether it was real or invented, led to her family sending her to America. This was in 1929. It seems like they wanted her to escape the whispers and the judgment back in Germany. And get this,
Yeah.
she left little Oscar behind. He stayed in Germany with her parents.
Oh, wow. So a fresh start, new country, you'd think that might set her on a different path.
Yeah, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? But instead, this is where we start to see, well, I'd say the first hints of a pattern that would become, chillingly familiar.
Let's unpack that. What happened when she got to America?
All right, so she met and married Philip Hahn, another German immigrant. They met in Cincinnati, Ohio. She went back to Germany briefly to get Oscar, and then they started their new life together in Cincinnati. But then, allegedly, a gambling habit develops. And it seems that to fuel this habit, she started to target a specific group within her community.
Elderly men in Cincinnati's German community, right? The men that she befriended, cared for, and ultimately, allegedly, poisoned for their inheritances.
Yeah, that's right. Her first suspected victim was Ernest Koch. He was an older man who, well, rather conveniently, died in 1933, shortly after Hahn befriended him. And even more conveniently, she inherited his house.
So the whole Arsenic Anna thing, that comes later?
Yeah, the connection to arsenic poisoning, that comes later when a more thorough investigation gets triggered.
Yeah.
But in these early cases, it was just the pattern, the befriending, the inheriting, and the suspicious timing of the deaths that started to raise eyebrows.
Yeah, like a blueprint for her crimes, right? A
Not
cycle that just repeats, like with chilling predictability.
exactly.
Yeah.
And this cycle, it highlights, I think, a crucial element in Hahn's alleged modus operandi, which is the exploitation of trust within her community.
It's a wild pattern for sure, but she wasn't exactly subtle, was she? Like inheriting a house? That just seems so blatant.
Right. Is bold. Yeah, there's this, boldness to it. She thought maybe she just wouldn't be suspected. Or maybe she underestimated the people around her.
And these cases back then, I mean, they weren't exactly high-profile investigations. Forensics wasn't what it is today.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. In the 1930s, I mean, forensic science was really just in its early stages. Arsenic poisoning, while it was known, it wasn't easily detected like it is today.
Mm.
Back then, investigators, they had to rely on these rudimentary tests. They often involved these chemical reactions that produced visible changes, in the presence of arsenic.
So no fancy DNA analysis or toxicology reports.
Nope, not quite.
Yeah.
And, this limited forensic capability, it probably played a role in allowing Han to keep operating undetected for as long as she did.
Wow, so she just kept going with this deadly scheme, preying on vulnerable men. So who came next?
Well, there was Albert Parker, another elderly man she was caring for. Before he died, Han borrowed money from him, even signed an IOU. But surprise, surprise, the IOU vanished after he died.
Geez, talk about adding insult to injury. It's like she was taunting the authorities. But why even bother with the IOU if she was getting bolder? I mean,
Maybe it was to keep up appearances. Maybe she felt like she had to create some kind of paper trail, to back up her stories about being the caregiver,
hmm.
the loans, or, maybe she just underestimated how much people would scrutinize everything later on.
Makes you wonder. But one thing's for sure, her crimes, they were escalating, right? The amounts she was inheriting were getting bigger too, weren't they?
Yeah, for sure, the stakes were getting higher. Jacob Wagner died in 1937, and he left his beloved niece, Anna Marie Hahn, a cool $17,000 in cash. And then There was George Gosselman, another man she cared for before his death. He also died in 37. And for her, quote, services, she got another $17,000.
So from a house to $17,000 twice. Did anyone suspect anything at this point?
It's hard to say for certain, but yeah, it seems likely that at least some people in the community were getting suspicious. But without like solid evidence, it would have been hard to actually accuse someone of, a woman who seemed to be as respectable as Han.
Right, the whole Arsenic Anna poisoner persona, that wasn't a thing yet.
Not yet. But her luck, if you can call it that, was about to change. And it was all thanks to her final victim, George Obendorfer.
Okay, so this is where things take a turn, right? Tell me about this Georg Obendorfer.
Well, Obendorfer was different from Han's other victims in one very important way. He didn't die in Cincinnati. He died in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And here's the even more intriguing part. Han and her son, Oscar, they traveled to Colorado Springs with him.
Hold on, she takes this whole poisoning act on the road. What was she thinking?
I know, it's a puzzling move, right? Maybe she felt invincible, like she could get away with anything. Or maybe she just saw, I don't know, an opportunity with Obendorfer she couldn't pass up. But whatever it was, this decision was, well, let's just say it was her downfall.
So what happened in Colorado Springs?
Well, according to police reports, Obendorfer, who was a cobbler, he got sick during the train ride there and died in a lot of pain very soon after they arrived in Colorado Springs. And here's the really chilling detail.
Oh, okay, what is it?
Just before he died, Han leaned over Obendorfer in his deathbed
Yeah.
and, like, pretending she didn't know who he was, asked for his name.
Wow, that is cold. Was she trying to, I don't know, make sure he was really dead? Or was it something else?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure what she was thinking. I mean, some people might say it was her being callous, making sure her victim was really gone. But others, they might see it as like a desperate act trying to separate herself from the crime.
It's chilling no matter how you look at it. But at least the authorities in Colorado weren't fooled, right?
Nope, they weren't. And the fact that Obendorfer died in a different state ended up being a major turning point in the investigation.
I'm guessing that's what triggered the more thorough investigation compared to her other victim.
Exactly. So they
Yeah.
did an autopsy,
Hmm.
and, well, they found high levels of arsenic in Obendorfer's body. And that's when things really started to change for Han.
Oh, wow.
And remember Oscar, Han's son? He was with them on that trip to Colorado.
Right, right. He was a witness to everything. What happened with him?
Well, Oscar's testimony turned out to be incredibly important. He confirmed that he, his mother, and Obendorfer had traveled to Colorado together, and that Obendorfer had gotten sick during the trip, which, that backed up the timeline and made the suspicions against Han even stronger.
So she really thought she could get away with it, even with her son there. That's crazy.
Yeah, it seems like, I guess it shows just how arrogant she was. Like, she really believed she was above suspicion.
But the evidence was really adding up. What happened next?
Well, since they found the arsenic in Obendorfer's body, the authorities, they decided to take a closer look at Han's past. They exhumed the bodies of her other suspected victims, and, as you might expect, they found traces of arsenic in those bodies too. So finally, all the pieces were starting to come together.
Game over for Arsenic Anna. They arrested her.
Yep, the police finally caught up with Han and arrested her. They charged her with murder. And, the whole Arsenic Anna name, that was actually made up by the media. It was this sensationalized nickname that really captured the public's imagination during her trial.
So that's where it came from. It's a name that for sure makes you think of both mystery and fear. What happened at her trial?
Okay, so her trial was a huge media event. It went on for 4 weeks, and the courtroom was packed every single day. The prosecution, they laid out a strong case showing the pattern of the deaths, her financial gain, and of course the arsenic in the bodies of the victims.
Did Han testify?
She did. But her testimony, it wasn't convincing. She denied doing anything wrong, said that she had loved and cared for all of her victims, but the evidence against her was just too strong.
So what did the jury decide?
The jury, they deliberated for just a few hours before they came back with a guilty verdict. Anna Marie Hahn was sentenced to death.
Wow, from a seemingly respectable immigrant to a convicted killer.
It is a pretty dramatic fall, yeah.
But what happened after that?
Well, on December 7th, 1938, Anna Marie Hahn, the infamous Arsenic Anna, was executed by electric chair. This was at the Ohio State Penitentiary. She was only 32 years old.
And she never confessed, right?
That's right. She said she was innocent all the way up to the very end, so she left behind a lot of unanswered questions. And this, chilling reminder that darkness can hide even in seemingly ordinary lives.
Okay, so we're back, and we've been discussing this this chilling case of Anna Marie Hahn, the Arsenic Anna of Cincinnati. We talked about her crimes, her victims, and the societal context of her case. But as we're wrapping up this deep dive, I'm really curious, what kind of impact did this case have on forensic science?
It's pretty interesting, right? How could a case this horrific actually lead to, advancements in how we investigate things? But Hahn's trial, remember, it was like a media circus.
Yeah.
All this public attention put a lot of pressure on law enforcement to show more than suspicion, right? They had to show actual scientific proof.
So it wasn't just about, catching the killer, it was about really proving it, beyond any doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And this need for that kind of proof, undeniable proof, it really pushed the development of forensic techniques, specifically for detecting arsenic poisoning. Remember, back then, testing for arsenic, it was pretty new. It involved chemical reactions. We usually needed big tissue samples.
So not like the trace level stuff we have today.
No, not at all. But the Hahn case, with all her victims and the need to link them all to her, it forced these forensic scientists to get better. They started trying new reagents, more sensitive tests, and getting better at finding arsenic in smaller and smaller samples.
So in a way, Hahn's crimes, they kind of helped advance forensic science. It's kind of a weird outcome, right?
Yeah, it is. But, it shows how innovation often comes from a need, right? Like we need to solve these tough cases to get justice and to protect innocent people. That often leads to scientific progress.
And these advancements in arsenic detection, I mean, they weren't only used in poisoning cases, right? Arsenic was in a lot of stuff back then.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was used in pesticides, paints,
Yeah.
even some medicines. So these better ways to detect it, they had a huge impact outside of crime investigations, too. Helped improve public safety, really, by finding arsenic in all sorts of everyday products.
So it's not all bad. The legacy of Arsenic Anna isn't only horror and deceit. It's also a story of scientific progress, even if it started with a tragedy.
It really is. It reminds us that even in dark times, there can be, some hope, some progress. And sometimes trying to get justice can lead to breakthroughs that make things better for everyone.
I like that. So we've come to the end of our deep dive into the life and crimes of Anna Marie Hahn. And it's a story that's, disturbing for sure, but it really makes you think, right? It's about the dark side of people, about how tricky justice can be, and about the surprising ways that science can move forward.
It sure is. It reminds us that we can learn from the past, even the really bad parts. That we can keep understanding the world better and better. And that we can try to create a world where justice wins out, where knowledge leads to a better future.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And to all of you listening, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep taking these deep dives with us into the stories that shape our world. See you next time.